tutelage of an incredible staff. And, you know, Coach Clark is one of the most respected guys that I know in the game. And, you know, it's certainly been something that we've taken a lot of pride in working with Limestone over the years. And, you know, there's definitely been a personal connection, especially given Tyler's personal experience with cancer. I know it resonated with you guys. And, you know, obviously I was happy to see, you know, the success that your program continues to have year over year. It truly is just a reflection of the leadership that you have there and just the culture of Limestone athletics. And it sounds as though you guys kind of represent a collective of kids from all over the country, which is awesome. And, you know, it certainly is an honor to work with you as an organization and know that, you know, HEADstrong holds a very special place in your heart. I know last year, you know, you guys, I remember meeting a bunch of you, you know, in Massachusetts at the end of last year. And it was so cool to kind of see the interaction that we had with your program. And it just means a lot to us. I want you to know that. You know, I think you guys collectively, I think Limestone has certainly moved the needle for the sport, especially in your division as a varsity sport. And has really kind of helped to grow the game when you think about South Carolina and, you know, just, you know, historically people don't think of South Carolina as a lacrosse, you know, hotbed, but you guys have certainly proved that. So anyway, we're being joined by Ken Clausen. Do you guys see him?
Oh yeah.
What's up, everyone?
Awesome. So anyway, Kenny, good morning.
Morning.
So we're dialed in, man. We're in the locker room of Limestone. Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, good.
I've been hearing stories about these mustaches at Limestone.
I know. They're legendary. So what I thought was really important, especially given the history that we have with Limestone, we thought it was really important to kind of hop on a Google Hangout and, you know, take some time to, you know, kind of dive in a little bit more with respect to what we're doing here at HEADstrong, the role that we play on behalf of cancer patients and their families across the country. You know, I want to first and foremost say that it truly is an honor to have you guys participating in Lacrosse Mustache Madness, showing your support for the cause throughout the course of the year. And, you know, I think it's important that you all know, in fact, what it is that HEADstrong's doing and the role that we serve, and more importantly, the critical need that, you know, that we play on behalf of families all across the country. I don't know if you guys are following the correspondence that we have, but first and foremost, I want you to, you know, this Thanksgiving holiday, I want you to keep a family in your hearts and in your thoughts and prayers, and that's the Dixon family. This is a family from Pochhog, New York, who just a few weeks ago lost their 16-year-old son, who's a lacrosse player from Oceanside, New York, to a vicious battle with osteosarcoma. And for you guys that participated last year in the campaign, Sean Dixon actually did a video promoting, in between his treatment schedule, Sean did a video encouraging guys like yourself to grow your mustaches. And at the time, he had his leg amputated. He obviously, you know, had been through the gamut of treatment, but took time away from his busy treatment schedule and just feeling like absolute crap to do a promotional video for HEADstrong and the campaign. So I sent out a link a couple of weeks ago, but the sad part is that we lost Sean a couple of weeks ago. And so I certainly, this Thanksgiving, when you guys go home, you know, celebrate, you know, the importance of family, savor that moment of, you know, just being with the people that you love most. And as you sit around a loving table, you know, just be thankful for the things that you certainly have. You know, unfortunately, we're in a situation where we're working with families who, you know, aren't so lucky and aren't so fortunate. And this Thanksgiving, we'll actually serve more than 500 people Thanksgiving dinner at the Abramson Cancer Center of the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. And it's just one of many, many things that HEADstrong does. And we've truly emerged as a lifeline to families in their darkest days of their life. See, you know, also on the 28th of November, we will celebrate the 11th anniversary of my brother Nick's passing. And, you know, so one thing that I want to take you guys, if you could, 11 years back and, you know, think about something. A 19-year-old kid playing lacrosse at Hofstra University gets the unfortunate news that he has cancer. And the type of cancer that he has is of a terminal nature, which means that there's really not a good prognosis. Nick was staged 4, diffused mature B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was given 3 months to live at the time of his diagnosis. He was a young man that essentially had 5 years on the athletic plane. He was a guy who, you know, meant a lot to a lot of people because his entire life was all about achieving despite the odds. Interestingly enough, that was the same fight that he took to having cancer. You know, Nick was only 5'10". He was 165 pounds. How many of you guys were multi-sport athletes in high school? Most of you. To put it into perspective, Nick was an all-state first-team nose guard in football at 165 pounds. He pinned his wrestling coach in 8th grade. He was a 4-time state champion in lacrosse at Ridley High School and led his team in his senior year to an undefeated season. But despite all the accolades, Nick was never about them. He was always about rising above the physical adversities that he had faced and making everyone else around him better. You know, I'm sure you guys have a player that you can point to on your team that, you know, embodies that characteristic. Somebody that you know that's going to come up always with a big play or a momentum-changing circumstance in a game, a big hit, a big ground ball. You know, that was Nick. You know, Nick was heavily recruited at the Division II and Division III level, but the opportunity to play Division I lacrosse presented itself on a recommendation. Brett Moyer recommended that Joe Amplo and John Danowski check out my brother. It was one of the only Division I offers or opportunities that he had had. And when he got to Hofstra, you know, Nick looked at it as an opportunity to once again prove himself. In his freshman fall, he earned a starting spot on Hofstra's defensive core and beat a kid, Jack Vivinetto, who's a 4-time All-American from Rocky Point, New York, who's now a Navy SEAL. So the reality is that Nick had this uncanny and just relentless work ethic. After his first fall practice, he went and met with John Danowski and said, "John, coach, what do I have to do to see the field? I did not come here to sit the bench. I want to be an impact player." And the irony in that statement is that I think you could argue that Nick's legacy and impact at Hofstra, as well as all of college athletics, is one that has certainly transformed the landscape from a student philanthropy standpoint. And we take great pride in that. You know, Nick was just an average kid. He was somebody that just knew what made him happy. I think most of us go through life trying to find our version of what makes us happy. You know, Nick was a simple kid. He wanted to be a teacher. He wanted to be a coach. You know, he wanted to give back. He was a camp counselor. He spent a lot of time with people with disabilities and special needs. You know, he was just a simple-hearted kid, I mean, who just loved being part of a team and understood that by being part of a team, he was part of something bigger than himself, and as a result, he was better. And so, you know, I tell people all the time that if there was anybody that was going to be diagnosed with cancer and face this disease head on, it would have been Nick, because of the way that he elected to go through treatment. You know, from the moment of diagnosis, he looked at it as an opportunity. He looked at it as an opportunity to prove people wrong. You know, okay, they tell me I have 3 months to live. That's ridiculous. You know, I've been able to accomplish every challenge that life has handed me over my life, and I'm going to do the same with cancer. So he went and spoke to his team moments after learning that he had a cancer diagnosis. And if you guys could imagine for a moment, think about how would you feel if you were plucked out of class right now, escorted to an office, met by physicians in your family, and told, "Nick, you have cancer, and what you have, most people don't make it." And as opposed to just collapsing, Nick said, "I want to talk to my team. because this isn't just affecting me, it's affecting everyone around me. And so he went down and he spoke to his team, and he gave one of the most inspiring addresses, to date in Hofstra athletics. And he stood up on a chair and he said, just like in the locker room you're in right now, and he said, I want no tears. He's like, I've just been told that I had cancer. We're going to beat this thing together. And I want nobody feeling bad for me. We're going to get through this thing. I'll be back at school in the spring. I'm withdrawing from school today. You want to talk about making some hard left rash decisions. Nick already had a game plan sketched in his head. So anyway, when Nick withdrew from school, my family really did not understand the depths of challenges that we would face over the next 14 months. And the thing is that, when Nick went into the hospital to begin treatment, he started to realize something. Number one, he realized that not everyone around him had an advocate. He realized that there were a lot of families that were in a situation where they were forced to travel far away from their homes and support systems for pursuing the life-saving treatments that were available. And our family was very lucky in the sense that we were 15 minutes away from a comprehensive cancer center that had an international ranking. In addition to that, he started to realize that cancer had a ripple effect far beyond himself. In fact, that was what Nick was mostly focused on during his cancer battle. He understood that this disease was playing a toll and having a devastating toll, both financially and emotionally, on my family. But he also realized the ripple effect. He saw how it affected his girlfriend. He saw how it affected his coaches and teammates. He saw how it affected his family. And all these things started to just play on his mind. And he used time in the hospital to devote to, sharing his experience publicly in hopes that others would find hope in his journey. And, that really became kind of the focus. In fact, I tell people all the time, the things that he unknowingly and instinctually possessed as an athlete unknowingly prepared him for his cancer journey. Because being athletes, you guys know, the ups and downs. You know what it's like to grind, and you know what it's like to feel the thrill of victory, but also that agony of defeat and that humility. You understand what it's like to have setbacks that are unplanned for, injuries, things that weren't on the schedule. You guys know what it's like to have a guy who's the anchor of your team go down, or transfer, or a coaching change. Things that, quite frankly, in the grand scheme of things, kind of mimic the challenges that we face in life. But the one thing that's a consistent is that you're all part of something together, and that together you're going to hold the rope for those people that are kind of less fortunate, that you're going to, pick up that person that's down, that, is kind of, they always say that you're only as strong as your weakest link, but as team, you believe that everybody plays a part, everybody plays a role, and you're going to do anything for that person. And I can honestly tell you that when a team is handed a tragic situation that's unplanned for, and honestly, you guys are going to see it. You look at a school like Lafayette, one of their top incoming recruits, freshman, died of a situation this year. You read situations last year. Penn State had a tragic situation where they had a goaltender that died in a car accident. I don't think you could point to a more tragic situation than what Ken Clausen was dealt with when he was at Virginia, with the tragic death of his closest friend, Yardley Love, and, something that affected his team drastically. The situation that happened with my brother being dealt. So the point being is that tragedy plays such a significant role in team. But the one thing that gets us through these difficult circumstances is our life experiences and our togetherness and our unity. And so, through negativity, we've been able to create something that has been incredibly positive. My brother Nick went into the hospital and spent, at one point in time, 45 days in the hospital. And if you guys could imagine that, spend 45 minutes in a hospital, let alone 45 days. And, the challenges that Nick found during that time was he saw my mother and father leaving their jobs to provide care, we as a family made a pact that when Nick was in the hospital that we would never leave his side because we always wanted to assure him that he wasn't alone. You know, the unexpected things of, how about this? My mother went back to college, and it took her about 10 years in a part-time basis to graduate with her bachelor's. And it was an incredibly proud moment for our family, and especially for her. But during that time frame, my brother was going through treatment, and the day of her graduation, my brother suffered a major allergic reaction to a prescription and was comatose. So once again, you know, life took another hardball. My mom was expected to give a speech. She was graduating at the head of her class at Cabrini University, and that got tabled because my brother was comatose. See, what happens, guys, is that cancer is paralyzing to a family. My mother and father struggled greatly financially, even with incredible benefits. You know, cancer is something that just doesn't go away. I mean, seriously, we've encountered families that have been dealt this hand and have battled for anywhere from 3 to 6 years, you know, and then at the end of that, they lose their loved one. So not only are they forced to deal and, you know, move forward as a family without their loved one, but they also have this financial challenge of being able to afford the treatments. And so, you know, 45 days in a hospital, my brother started to ask himself a lot of questions, the same way you guys would. How come the food in this hospital sucks? How come, you know, my mom or my girlfriend and my family, you know, they want to stay alongside of me, but there's not a chair bed? How come I can't watch the game on television that I want to watch? How come, you know? And Nick just wasn't about pointing out the negative. He was also about tackling these real problems with tangible solutions. And so, for instance, he went out, he organized a fundraiser and bought 60 chair beds for caregivers. He went and he met with students at Drexel University and created a multi-entertainment unit that would improve the inpatient accommodations. He started to realize that when Nick was not responding to treatment, that when our family had to be displaced to Bethesda, Maryland, that there was a place for us to stay. And then what happened was a situation shed major light on a huge problem. And the huge problem, guys, is the affordability and the accessibility of cancer treatment. You see, not every area has access to the most technologically advanced treatment options, clinical trials, specialty physicians, etc. So one day we were standing in line. My dad was standing in line to pay for parking. Now, here's the crazy thing. University of Pennsylvania has a parking garage, right? You leave your car there. You're there mostly about 12 to 14 hours a day. And it's around $21 a day. So do the math. We're talking upwards of $200 a week just to park your car at a hospital, okay? You do the math. It's $800 a month, unexpected out-of-pocket expense. Well, this man started talking with my father. My dad had recognized this man from the floor. His daughter was going through a bone marrow transplant, and the man looked at my dad and said, you know, where could I get a shower? And my dad said, well, where are you staying? And the man got choked up, and he said, my wife and I are in the car. This is a family that was living out of a car in the parking garage of the University of Pennsylvania Hospital so that their loved one, their daughter, who was 16 years old, could receive a bone marrow transplant. Now, at the time, I wasn't living at home, and my brother Michael was playing lacrosse at Hofstra, so he was still up at Hofstra, and Nick was impatient. So my mother and father invited this family, who had traveled a distance of more than 1,000 miles for their loved one, and welcomed them into our own house. Again, major problem. The sacrifices that families will go through for the sake of a loved one dealing with an uncurable type of situation. You see, guys, as people don't respond to treatment, the windows begin to close, okay? And it's like, well, there's a doctor in Salt Lake City, Utah. You're in South Carolina. Well, guess what? When you're facing your own mortality, guess where you're going? You're going to Salt Lake City, Utah, and you're not even guessing it. You're not even second guessing it. This is the situation that thousands of families a year are being kind of pigeonholed into. And so, with that being said, we opened Nick's House in 2011. Nick's House has been a haven of comfort for families for the past 6 years. We've welcomed families from more than 30 states. We've provided more than 2,500 nights of complimentary housing, and it has shed light on a major, major problem. And that is, how do you undergo treatment when, financially speaking, you're not able to afford a level of hospitality that allows you to go through these treatments? So, for instance, travel, lodging, food, all these things that you weren't incurring, before. The reality is that the average guest family stays at Nick's House for 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm very pleased to share with you that we've been at 100% occupancy since day one. But here's the problem. Guys, we've turned away more families than we've been able to accommodate. So a year ago, we embarked on an amazing journey. And on December 12th, we're going to be opening the second Nick's House. This is an 8,000 square foot, 4-story home, which has been converted to fit the unique needs of patients and their families while they undergo these life-saving treatments. What essentially we've been able to do, boys, in 6 years, we're going to be able to do in 1 year. 8 families will be able to stay at Nick's House at a time. 2,500 nights of complimentary housing annually. And we're going to be able to support more than 200 families a year through this new property. And this is what you're part of, guys. We're talking about lacrosse players coming together, uniting, doing things like Mustache Madness, pledging games, doing all these things to have this amazing home that these folks can let's just put it this way. We're affording them the ability to pursue these life-saving treatments. Right now at Nick's House, we have a 9-month-old. They've traveled 5 hours from Western Maryland to Philadelphia. She has a very unique cancer of the central nervous system. Her name is Holly Crow. And they were originally receiving treatment in West Virginia. Now think about this, how fair life is. 9 months old. She's been going through treatment for now 3 months. Okay, she was diagnosed at 6 months. This year, we've seen so many children that have been dealt this hand. 4 weeks ago, we were able to have a success story. Have you guys seen the flyer for Mustache Madness with the little boy with the mustache? His name's Ben Austin. Celebrated his 5th birthday with us at Nick's House. They traveled from New York to Philadelphia, and they're able to go home and spend Thanksgiving together. This is a family, guys, that was divided 3 ways just to sustain Ben's level of care. Mom left work. She was a benefits carrier and a teacher. Okay? They have a grandmother taking care of Ben's 15-month-old sister, Emma. And Jason, who's the father, is on the road traveling, trying to just keep the household afloat. This new family, this is so sad. This new family from Nick's House, the Crow family, in addition to Holly, they have 2 boys, okay? And one's 8 and the other one's 5. Their mother and father haven't seen their children in 2.5 months. So these are the type of situations that we see. HEADstrong is this bridge. It's this lifeline. The way that you guys are going to hold the rope for each other is the same way that HEADstrong is doing that on behalf of families across the country. Now, the amazing part is that 90 cents of every dollar raised for HEADstrong supports patients and families directly. Guys, we've assisted more than 15,000 families around the country with more than $11 million in financial assistance and support, operating 2 Nick's houses, improving the inpatient experience of more than 18 hospitals around the country, and working with the #1 pediatric inpatient cancer center and outpatient cancer center in Philadelphia. Okay, these are facilities that have the #1 national rating. So what's happening is that we have an international patient base. Guys, they'll see 250,000 patients this year. Think about that for a moment. 250,000 patients will go and receive treatment at these medical facilities. Some of these doctors see 40 patients a day. Think about how many classes you have in team meetings. Can you imagine having 40 meetings a day? Like, I mean, that's the workload. So anyway, guys, you know, my brother Nick passed away 11 years ago. In the last days of his life, he grew a mustache because he had lost so much weight that he went from being at one point 205 pounds to being wheelchair bound at 120 pounds. One day I came home from work and I caught Nick staring at himself in the mirror, and it absolutely broke my heart. He struggled to get up. In the latter part of his life, he had some mobility issues. And I remember him looking at himself in the mirror, and he had such a look of like disappointment on his face. Because the sad part is that he felt that in coming to grips with the fact that he was going to lose his fight and that this cancer was out of his control, he felt a sense of guilt, like he was letting people down. I can't even begin to tell you how heartbreaking that was to look at my brother staring at himself in the mirror and the look of disappointment on his face. And I looked at him and I said, don't you ever hang your head. Don't you ever feel upset that there was nothing more you could do. You know, in this situation, Nick was coming to grips with the fact that, like, you know, that he knew that this was out of his control. But he did know one thing, that his pulse was the lacrosse community. And in the latter part of his life, like I said, he desired to feel normal. He hated more than anything being treated like a patient. And so, you know, interestingly enough, that's what HEADstrong's committed to. We're committed to helping families navigate their cancer journey with greater quality of life, dignity, and normalcy. Normalcy is the heart. This is a common thread amongst all cancer situations and all families that have been touched by this disease. And for us, you know, in the latter part of Nick's life, in the last 6 weeks, the period that you guys are emulating right now, you know, Nick's birthday was on October 19th, and he passed away on November 28th. Kind of ironic that that's the dates of this Lacrosse Mustache Madness campaign. And, you know, the reality is that over these 6 weeks, 11 years ago, you know, Nick grew this mustache as an attempt to just feel normal again, because he felt like it was like a buffer, because if he had the mustache, it shifted the conversation away from how he looked to the fact that, dude, you grew a mustache? Like, dude, that's awesome. Like, it was almost like, you know, an attempt to just diffuse the fact that he was looking so ill. So guys, these mustaches that you're growing, they're not just silly. They actually are, you guys are emulating the last 6 weeks of my brother's life. And you're making a statement on behalf of the 1.6 million families across the country living with this, the 200,000 families that are going to be diagnosed over this next 6 weeks, you know, or that have been diagnosed during this period. And we're going to take this money that you guys raise, and we're going to assist families, and we're going to welcome families to Nick's house with open arms, okay? And so, you know, we felt it was imperative to get on the horn with you guys, to share with you these stories, to answer any questions that you have. You guys right now have the ability to do something great this week and next week. You know, you guys have 53 members of your team registered. Last year, you guys raised like almost, I think it was close to, I want to say it was like $10,000. I think you guys collectively can do an incredible job. I think you could blow that number out of the water this year. And that's why I felt it was so incredibly important that you guys, you know, that we have the chance to get to know each other, that I get a chance to share this story with you, and that we have an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have, especially you guys, I believe, going home this week for Thanksgiving break. So at this time, I want to just take any questions that you guys may have and you know, help kind of provide some assistance in any way we can. Any questions?
I know. A lot of times, Facebook, a lot of times, like, hey, Chris, you this. What can we separate HEADstrong to get one of the
sorry, you were saying what can you do to separate? Say
like
that
to separate that HEADstrong is important, that these people should donate to it as opposed to a lot of the other times they're asked to donate.
Understood. I think it's incredibly important to know that at HEADstrong that we are direct family services. So I think it's incredibly important that like we're not just like a catch-all that just like takes money and puts it into research. We actually work directly with families from across the country. I'm going to encourage you guys, there is a database of resources that are available to you. And if you've been following the email communication, there's a database, and we'll follow up with an email to your registered members. What I want you to do is use those. There's a bunch of different stories of hope. There are videos. Just this morning, I sent out a video of our head table program that will assist you guys in your fundraising. So this is really just a matter of sharing the resources that we currently have that will help you to share, the mission and why you guys are doing what you're doing. Those things that I was telling you about the 15,000 families that we've assisted, all those different things, we are directly involved. When a family's diagnosed, we have social workers that in fact put us in touch with these families, and we help mentor them through their cancer journey. That's essentially what deviates and is the biggest difference that HEADstrong plays in the lives of families, is that we're active, that we're direct, and that our services are real. Like our impact is measurable. I mean, it is like being able to, like I told you about Nick's house, welcome a family and ensure for them that they don't have to, like I said, we are the lifeline that gives them the ability to explore clinical trials, okay? Because we operate a home. Think about that. We literally operate an amazing home that is devoted to servicing their needs so that they can pursue these treatments and care for their loved one. We essentially welcome them home. We're a home away from home for them. So does that help answer that? So use that link, and I'll forward it to you guys again. And I'll also send you guys some video links that you guys can share. And I think the biggest difference that you need to share with folks is that the impact is real. It costs $150 a night to house a family at Nick's house. You should share that statistic. This Thanksgiving, we'll serve 500 families. It's $27 to feed a patient. So just like I said, these are monetary things that you can say, hey, this is what Nick's house is all about. We welcome families from all over the country. HEADstrong is lacrosse. I mean, it was started by a lacrosse player. That is why you guys are getting behind it, because, this is something that was essentially conceptualized by one of your own, one of your brothers, if you will. So,
yeah,
right?
I think going with what Pat said there too, and like you said, I think in terms of the talking points, it's HEADstrong's helping people. The people you see in the ads are the people who you are helping or who have been helped. I think in terms of just kind of brief talking points, you can talk about Nick's house, Nick's house that Pat said was opening on December 12th. Nick's house opening December 12th, opening or housing, 7 to 8 families at a time that are getting, cancer treatment in Philadelphia. Those are the people that you're helping. That's what's happening at HEADstrong. That's going to be going on. Like Pat said, $150 a day at Nick's house is what it costs. So that's another talking point. Instead of, just saying what it is, you can say, here's what it costs to house a family. There's going to be 8 families at a time here. It costs $150 a night. I think in terms of fundraising as well, I would encourage you guys not to overthink it. I think a lot of times it's just as simple as taking a picture, posting it on social media with the link to your fundraising page, and just saying, hey, look, here's my disgusting mustache. Donate to it. Here's what it does. Hey, it's $150 for a night at Nick's house. I'm looking for 10 friends to donate $15. Kind of break it down in a way that it doesn't seem so daunting, where if you look at it and go, man, how are we ever going to get to $10,000? It starts to snowball once you just get it going. Put some pictures up, start telling people what you're doing, why you're doing it. You don't need to, go on about this entire story about everything, but you can give little talking points like that. The $150, helping 7, 8 families at a time, helped how many people this time, feeding families on Thanksgiving. whatever it may be, start breaking it down and just getting it out there, and you'll start seeing some things start rolling. I wanted to thank you guys for being a part of both the competition and then also joining us this morning. I know Monday morning, it's early. I know you guys as athletes have so much going on, but thank you guys for taking the time this morning and then taking the time to be part of this competition. You guys have been so great the last couple of years. And as Pat has reiterated time and time again, the thing with HEADstrong is that you're helping real people, and everyone in the ad is people who you're helping. And so it makes such a difference. And you guys as athletes, I hope you're aware of this, but you guys are leaders at your school and in your community, and take an initiative like this to get on with Mustache Madness, especially when I'm guessing most of you don't tend to have mustaches throughout the year. People notice, and they ask, well, why do you have that mustache, like Pat said, and what's going on? And when you start telling them and showing them what you guys are doing, it sets an example for your community at the school. It sets an example for your community back home, especially in this day and age with social media where everyone can see what you're doing. I hope you guys understand that the ripple effect you guys are having both with HEADstrong and the impact you're making there, but also in the communities and at your school with the example you're setting. It means a lot, and we really appreciate all the efforts you guys are having and all you guys are doing. Like I said, we know how busy you are as athletes. And so thank you guys for your continued support of Mustache Madness. And we're excited to see what you guys do in the next 3 weeks. But like I said, thank you for being leaders. Thank you guys for jumping on board with this. It truly means a lot. And like Pat said, you guys are making a big difference. It seriously is a big difference. Mustache Madness, we've raised over $1 million now in 9 years that we've been doing this. This started in my dorm room with a buddy back my senior year at UVA in 2009. And we would have never thought, that 9 years later, we've raised over $1 million. That's so many people that we, the lacrosse community, have been able to help. And it's grown every year. We're hoping that we continue growing this year. We're on track to do so. But thank you guys for being such an instrumental part and a keystone of this whole foundation. And thank you guys for being leaders because it means a lot. And you guys are making a big difference. And we truly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, boys. And like I said, any other questions? No? All
Fellas,
right.
good luck this season, guys, man. Thanks a lot for everything you guys are doing. We're looking forward to watching you light it up this year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great holiday.
You too.